Can you imagine leaving your country in Europe, moving abroad, paying taxes in that new country, and still receiving a letter from your former tax authority saying you owe taxes back home? Well, that could become a reality before 2030. Europe in general follows a residency-based taxation model, meaning you pay taxes where you spend most of the year or where your economic and vital center is located. But that could change very soon, because France has already opened Pandora's box with a universal taxation proposal, a model similar to that of the US, where simple holding a passport obliges you to continue paying taxes to your home country. If France approves it, other European countries will quickly follow. In this video, I will explain why I believe this could happen before 2030, why it's not a conspiracy theory or baseless speculation, but a real fiscal trend gaining traction across Europe, and what it means for you and how to prepare for it. Let's first understand what we are talking about. Most countries in the world use a residency-based system. If you live in the country, you pay taxes there. The United States, which taxes its citizens no matter where they live, and Eritrea, which has a similar system but with minimal enforcement capacity. The citizenship-based taxation or universal taxation model means it doesn't matter if you live in Dubai, in Paraguay or Thailand. If you hold, for example, a French, Spanish or German passport, your home country could still claim taxes on your income. In the US, the only way to escape this is to renounce your citizenship, which thousands of Americans do each year. Will this happen in Europe? Well, I generally believe it will happen. Will it be as effective as the US system? Absolutely not. In fact, I believe that for most Europeans it will be a complete failure, because Europe has no FATCA-like tool. The US doesn't just tax its citizens worldwide, it also created a global enforcement system through FATCA, Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. FATCA requires every financial institution in the world to report financial data of US citizens directly to the IRS. If they don't comply, they face severe penalties and exclusion from the US financial systems. Many banks refuse to open accounts for US citizens due to compliance burden. The US has collected billions in undeclared taxes since 2014. But in Europe, no country has anything remotely close to FATCA. European countries cannot freeze accounts or impose sanctions globally. They can threaten international banks the way the US can. So the citizenship tax system in Europe would be legally easy to ignore and practically impossible to enforce. The second reason is because Europe has no control over the global financial system. The US has enforcement power because the dollar is the global reserve currency. The US banking system dominates international finance. It has bilateral tax treaties with nearly every country. Europe lacks all three. Even if one country in the EU imposes a passport tax, it won't be able to enforce it on a global scale, because the euro is controlled by the European Central Bank. No European country has global banking leverage. No country can sanction banks for non-cooperating like the US can. However, the EU might try to push this as a regional initiative, forcing all members to adopt it, to avoid tax competition between them. This could be done through bilateral tax agreements, which leads us to the next issue. They would have to renegotiate every tax treaty. Current treaties are based on residency, not citizenship. Modifying this would require renegotiating every treaty, and many countries won't agree to those changes, especially not for the benefit of a European power with declining influence. The European Union is not the US, and its global relevance is fading. Even today, many European tax agencies struggle to audit their own residents. Now imagine trying to chase millions of expats across the world. That would require massive investment in staff, systems and technology, worldwide cooperation, and a level that Europe simply doesn't have. The first reason, fiscal crisis and unsustainable debt across Europe is reaching alarming levels. Many countries already exceed 110% of GDP. There are fewer taxpayers, rising pensions and increasing public spending. Over 30% of the population in many countries is over 50 years old. Young people and entrepreneurs are living in droves, and the governments are desperate for revenue. So the easy solution is, if you hold our passport, you owe us tax. no matter where you live. We have the French precedent because France has already proposed taxing former residents who have lived in the country for at least 3 of the past 10 years, even if they have moved abroad. If this passes, other EU states could copy fast. France introduced the exit tax, Spain and others copied. Same with the OECD global minimum tax. We have seen this pattern before. It's likely to repeat itself. Also, Europe participates in every global banking information exchange agreement. So the message here is clear. They don't want the wealthy to leave. And if they can stop the exodus, they will change the rules. You still owe taxes even after you leave. So what can you do? If this system comes into effect, your only defense is to have a solid plan B, or at least if they implement this measure within the next 2 to 10 years after you have left the country, it's smart to start preparing your tax residency change as soon as possible, so you can keep your current passport without being forced to pay taxes when that rule comes into effect, at least if the requirements are the same that France has proposed. Once the European Union starts taxing by citizenship, the only way will be citizenship renunciation. But you can renounce your only nationality. You need a second passport first. Get it now, while the process is still possible. You have Citizenship-Based, the cheapest route, especially in Latin America. Also, you have investment route from $100,000 basic option, okay, to $250,000 for passports similar to EU standards in the Caribbean, or maybe some by exemption in other countries of Europe, as Bosnia, as Serbia. Also, you have the route of naturalization. Countries like Paraguay, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Chile offer this after a few years of residency. If you move abroad, do it properly. Cut all ties with your home country like property, income, family and registration. Establish yourself in a country with clear tax resident rules. For example, you have the UAE, you have Paraguay, you have Panama, you have Dominicana, you have El Salvador. You have many options. Also, you will need to open bank accounts in multiple jurisdictions, setting up companies in tax-efficient countries, use cryptocurrency and legal structures to protect your assets. Many people might still decide to keep paying the tax to retain their European passport, their European citizenship, and that's totally valid. But if you are watching this video, I'm guessing you are looking that for something else. If you don't have a plan B, you could end up trapped even if you have already moved. If you want help getting your second passport, your second citizenship, or building a legally solid structure to reduce your exposure, fill out the form in the description and we will help to build the path. What do you think? Will Europe be able to enforce a system like the US? Let me know in the comments.